One thing that you said in the documentary that I watched, you said to you, he was the most successful person you knew. I'm an artist, and I often get in this slump where I'm like, oh, there's so much more I should be doing, and I should be doing this. And so here's your role model who you look at as having everything, and him admitting to you that he feels like he hasn't done as much. Do you feel like there was this element of he was one person when he was on stage, and then when he got home, he wasn't able to be that person, but he was still dad to you? So I'm interested in that whole dynamic of dad, the performer, and the man, Robin Williams, and what you learned from that.
I think the thing that I found he sought to learn was how to be happy in that downtime. And for him, it was very much related to service. He loved supporting good causes, charitable organizations and the like. And he learned how to connect with his family, me, and my siblings. And the thing that I found for him that was ultimately relieving was continuing to learn and to take the time to really understand others. And it was part of his genius, connecting potentially disparate topics and turning it into something new. But for him, it was very clear that he was a student to life. And I always appreciated that about him.
Sean's Basement Banter.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Basement Banter. I am, of course, Sean. I am joined we don't have Toddy Boy here today.
Todd's too busy for us, sadly.
Yeah,
that's the price of fame.
Recording Will Smith now, isn't he?
Probably.
So,
yeah.
So Todd left us, but Woody's still here. We got Woody.
You have to make do with me.
Yeah, make do with you, but we are making up this Basement Banter episode with, I would probably say, one of the most, to me at least, special guests that we have had on so far. And the reason why is not only because I'm a massive fan of his father, but because Zak doesn't really do this much. He doesn't really do much of the media stuff. And we're going to get into it right now. But today our guest is Zak Williams. He's an actor, an entrepreneur, a mental health advocate. He's waving for all the people who are watching on YouTube, but for the people listening, he's the co-founder and CEO of Prepare Your Mind. And like I said, the son of the legendary actor and comedian, the one and only Robin Williams. Zak, mate, thank you so much for coming on, man. How are you?
Thank you, buddy.
I'm doing pretty well today. We're in Los Angeles, my wife and my son and myself, and we're doing all right given the circumstances. We are entering a new phase, maybe a new era with a new president-elect, and so
exactly,
hopefully good things will come from there.
Mate, congratulations on your son. What is he, 1.5 now?
He is going to be 1.5 next week.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, I love that he didn't go, he's 19 months, and I stopped doing all of that ages ago, mate. I'm like, he's nearly 2. Yeah. My one, I think he's 3. He's not. He's only
you think he's 3?
Honestly, I have no fun.
he looks about 3.
Yeah. He looks around 3. So anyway, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I know you don't do this much, and by that, even all it takes is a quick little Google of your name, and you will see that really it's only in recent times that you have started to sort of do a bit more of the media talking, and that's mainly to do with the fact that you have this company and a product, of course, which you have launched, PYM, which we're going to get into all of that. But being the son of arguably one of the most famous actors, if not celebrities in the whole world, that has got to be one of those. Either it's going to go, yeah, I'm Robin Williams' son, and you just brag about it and get into every club and bar in Hollywood, or you go, yeah, I'm going to leave that to dad. I'm just going to sort of chill out here and stay out of it. What was your take?
Well, for most of my adult life, and before that, I was under the radar. I'm actually, most of my career was spent in technology.
That's right.
I did a little acting early on, but for me, it was a large part of what I did was building experiences, primarily consumer technology experiences, working with various companies in various roles. And so, there wasn't necessarily a need to put myself out there and be like, hey, I run marketing for this company, or, I'm the chief operating officer of this company, or so yeah, there wasn't necessarily a need to put myself out there up until recently. Actually started about 5 years ago when I started engaging in mental health advocacy and talking about the importance of mental health support and taking care of oneself, and also sharing my journey and struggles because I found it to be helpful for others while I was healing the trauma associated with my dad dying by suicide. So, from my lens, there was something pulling me to share my story. And that was not only part of my healing process, but also I hope, helpful for others when they hear what I've been through, what I'm doing to take care of myself, and how I'm seeking to contribute to the mental health support movement.
Mate, absolutely. I think, what you are doing is probably one of the most noble things that you could do given the circumstances of what you experienced. Because one thing that I know is in my, yes, I'm in the entertainment industry. Yes, people would call me a celebrity, but there is levels to this. There is levels. Your dad couldn't go anywhere in the world without people knowing who he was. And I know how my daughter reacts, or my parents react, or my brother reacts when people find out they're related to Jay Sean. And a lot of the time there's this tendency of sort of like, oh, I don't want to talk about it, but oh God, you found out, shit. Now you're going to do like, I love his song. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah. And so a lot of the time I feel like I've seen it in my own family. They kind of don't really want to talk about it too much. It's either like you go one way or the other. You either brag about it all the time or you kind of just don't, right? And I feel like with you, I can only assume when people find out he's your dad, was it ever difficult to go, well, fucking ask me about me. Ask me what I'm into. What do I do? What do I like? Rather than all the questions always being about your father, perhaps.
There's a part of me that is honored. It's a privilege to be part of our family, and there's a legacy there that we care about upholding, and that's important for me. But I have to say, to be called the son of Robin Williams is okay in my book. I think it helps. It helps provide context for some people. Mm-hmm. In my case, I do my own thing. I have for a long time. And so I'm confident in what I do and feel comfortable in my skin. And if people want to share stories of when they spent time with my dad, or how films or comedy has impacted their life, that's all positive in my book.
Of course.
It's the type of situation where I'm very grateful to be able to be a member of my family.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no surprise that, people like myself and Woody, who are big fans of comedy and in the entertainment industry, that, having you on the show, there's always a tendency to want to jump straight into questions about your dad, right? Be like, oh my God. So when so-and-so came out, like, and that I'm sure happens so much to you, even when you have mates, you're like, are you really coming over to my house to see me? Or you ask hoping that my dad's here, right?
First off, I'm okay with those type of questions.
Yeah.
Second,
that's nice.
I think amongst amongst my friends and community, they've come to know me for who I am and my family for who they are. And so I would like to think that my friends, my community seeks to be my friends or part of my community because they care about me. And, you know,
absolutely.
My dad certainly plays a part of that, but you know, I have a life, and I appreciate the role that, you know, my family plays in that. And I'm very grateful that they've been so supportive on my journey. And so it's just a pleasure to be able to hop on a cast and, you know, podcast and share some of my experience and journey and hear more about what motivates you. And it's just a privilege to be able to do this.
I was going to say, speaking of that, I mean, maybe just to ask you directly, that family experience, that you went through, and let's talk about the founding of PYM. Let's talk about, you know, how did you decide that you wanted to get involved in this particular business, and how did you discover this product?
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for asking. So my journey with PYM relates very much to my mental health journey. I have experienced anxiety throughout most of my life. That was diagnosed as generalized anxiety disorder. And after my dad died by suicide, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. So that compounded the anxiety. And that was something that was not working for me in the longer run. It made my anxiety worse. It wasn't helping in dealing with the trauma. I was feeling numb. I was feeling dysregulated. And so I just wasn't happy. And I found solutions through two paths. One was a commitment to mental health advocacy. That was something that was extremely helpful and supportive for me. I found that by committing to service, focus on causes relating to mental health, was actually very healing for me and helped manage the trauma. But it didn't necessarily manage the acute stress and anxiety I was dealing with every day. And you know, I wanted to stop drinking. At the end, I was drinking alcoholically and was doing it to manage the symptoms associated with all this trauma and you know, my mental health experience prior. And when I took alcohol out of the equation, I tried other solutions. Cannabis didn't really work for me. I was actually, I'm allergic to it, I think. So it was causing me to be more anxious, and so that really wasn't working. And so then I tried prescription pharmaceuticals, primarily around supporting my anxiety, and they work for some people. And I want to advocate, you know, for people who they work for. By all means, please continue using prescribed solutions. But
right.
I started experimenting with natural support solutions with my now wife, who turned me on to GABA and amino acid formulations as a way of supporting stress and anxiety throughout the day. And through that discovery experience, I realized that I could actually solve for my stress and anxiety that I was dealing with by taking GABA and amino acid formulations to support me. And I also found that L-theanine, which is one of the active ingredients in green tea, was very helpful. And so I started taking this on a regular basis, and I was like, wow, I feel great. And why can't I find all this in one place? A. B. Why isn't there a company in the consumer goods category that stands for mental health support, like Red Bull stands for energy, you know? And so I started a company with the focus on providing safe, effective mental health support solutions while advocating for mental health support. And that's what's so exciting about starting this company, is that it's not about taking the product and having it solve all your challenges in life. That's not what we stand for. We stand for catalyzing healthy activity. It's about potentially taking PYM, the chewables that we've created, but then also participating in activity like meditation, mindfulness, talk therapy, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, any other sort of supportive solutions that get you to where you need to be. And that's what we stand for. And that's why I created the company, is that as a mental health advocate, I wanted to create a brand that advocates for mental health support. And that's what excites me, because, you know, even if we catalyze, even if people take our product or don't take our product, but become aware of the brand and start taking care of themselves better, we will have succeeded.
Absolutely.
That's what's so exciting.
It's very clear how much it excites you, because I can see you jumping out of your seat while you're talking about it. And that is, you're talking to my heart too. And I'll tell you why, mate, because before I did music, I was studying medicine. And before I did medicine, I did a degree in psychology. So this is literally, I have been obsessed with this my whole life, even through doing music. And what I've always found interesting is, and the reason why I was going to get to PYM, but I wanted the backstory. I wanted to get to the backstory to what pushed you there, right? So what, for people who are listening and for people who might not have known the stories, from what they saw of your father and from you, you said to me, you've dealt with anxiety a majority of your life. Now, I find that so interesting, because you see these kids nowadays, right, Zach, and they look at your life as, say, the son of somebody who's living in, you know, the Hollywood dream and stuff. And they're like, oh, he must have the best life ever. Oh, they must live in mansions and go on dream vacations and sit on yachts, and life must be amazing for them. And a lot of these kids nowadays do aspire just to be famous, Zach. And what happens, I think, is by chasing that goal, they think they're going to get happiness at the end of it. So can you talk to me about how and why you think a lot of the time your anxiety came from, where it came from, and also the fact that your father too struggled with it for so long. He struggled with, you know, addiction and stuff like that. So please try to break it down, the backstory of, try to go back into the early years of what it was like growing up as a child.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was awesome, because we were very close. So I had a very positive childhood, spending time with him. I mean, there were challenges associated with being, you know, child of divorce and the like, but you know, before I go into it, I would say I don't think there's a problem with fame for fame's sake. I hope, it's certainly better than notoriety.
Right.
But also, you know, I think having purpose, just achieving fame for fame's sake, and you might get there, but without the purpose, then it can be very challenging to establish meaning in day to day. And
yeah.
You know, in growing up, I found my dad was very purposeful, and he was very careful in managing his well-being. Primarily, he was an avid cyclist, and he liked to jog, and he was most happy when he was connected with people. Meaning when he wasn't isolating, because that's something I found in growing up. When I was isolating or he was isolating, it would enable us to get in our own heads and ultimately create situations which were most likely not the case. Meaning, you know, situations of judgment, situations of worry, and you know, Jay, you know, you're an entertainer. If you get too much in your own head, it can be paralyzing.
Absolutely. I love what you said about having a purpose. I love that, because it was so apparent that your dad just literally wanted to make people smile and laugh. And that's it. And he seems like one of those people that if you met him, it would eat him up if he didn't leave you without a little chuckle or at least a smile or at least an autograph or something, so that they say, I met Robin Williams and he was everything that I wanted him to be. And you walked away happy. And I think that's so beautiful for you to be able to say that, you know, fame doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing if it's for a purpose. And that's very, very apparent. And I want to know, you know, when you were at home and your dad is, you know, this funny, happy-go-lucky guy, and everybody knows him for that. Were there ever any pressures for you to sort of be like, well, you know, because obviously your grandmother was the funny one too, right? Robin's mother. And then were people like, well, are you funny? Do you tell jokes? Do you like, was that ever the case? Was there an expectation for there to be a funny gene?
One of the reasons why when I was younger, I did pursue acting and entertainment, but it wasn't as interesting to me as pursuing building products and experiences and you know, participating in the growth of companies. And I wouldn't qualify myself as being super funny, but you know, I didn't aspire to be a comedian, you know? So for me, amongst friends, family, you know, the broader group of people I'm associated with, acquaintances, they know me and they know my brand of humor. It's just specific to me. It's you know, the aspects of my dad's genius relating to humor was not something that I really took on, and that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. So you obviously had different interests, like as we all do. Like people always ask, it's the cliche question, isn't it? That people say to me, "Oh, is your daughter going to go into?" I'm like, listen, if she wants to become a scientist, she wants to become a mathematician, whatever, please go. As long as she's happy, go and do it and have fun with it. You know, absolutely. So when you're this how you saw your dad and he's very compassionate, he's doing all this stuff. Was there also a way for you to marry your interest in tech and investment into, like you said, where did the mental health part come from? Where were you like, this is where I want to take it? Yeah. When was that moment? What was the first moment?
Well, I've always been interested in science and technology from an early age. I studied linguistics in undergraduate school, in college and undergrad, and literature as well. But you know, the thing that most engages me is things that are new to the world in terms of products and experiences. And so I'm very passionate about innovating upon existing things, bringing stuff that's new to the world. And my dad certainly imbued that in me. He's functioned similarly, but was thinking about more in terms of humor, comedy, acting. Right. For me, it's more so about products, experiences. And so that's why I took an interest in technology, also investing. But in terms of the mental health consideration, that didn't really kick in until I found it to be really healing for me. So it took a catalyzing event in terms of the trauma for it to really become something that I found to be part of my life's mission.
Got you.
Prior to that, you know, I would engage in charitable activity and volunteer, and that was all great and awesome, but it wasn't part of kind of the fabric, the DNA of my life. And that's something that started to kick in my 30s. And it didn't require, but it was based upon this catalyzing event, but you know, my dad dying by suicide. So I came by it earnestly. And the thing that I found is that I'm in my lane when I'm showing up for others.
To that end, why is there such a stigma attached to specifically male mental health? Like, as in, so often I see from friends and family that not to be pejorative or to kind of to stereotype, but there seems to be an element. My father, for example, is a former military professional and suffered from PTSD as a result. And I've said before on this podcast, when he left the services, they gave him a bag of vitamins. They said, well, this will sort you out. Some B vitamins. That will make everything okay. Don't worry about it. Stop thinking about all the terrible things you went through. In your experience, this journey of creating this product of PYM, what have been the stigmas that you have experienced, and what are some of the stigmas you try to allay of men's mental health specifically?
Well, so there's a couple things to unpack there. It's a great question. I find that from a cultural perspective, at least in Western culture, the stigma associated with mental health often especially amongst men, relates to the values of what it means to be a man. You hold it in, drink it off, shake it off, do all those things that you need to do to just get through the day. And I'm finding that amongst younger generations, Gen Z, the younger generation from that is Gen Alpha. They are more attuned to being vulnerable and seeing vulnerability as a strength versus a weakness.
Right, absolutely.
And I think on a cultural level, it's different throughout the world, but the traditional aspects of masculinity, what it means to be a manly man, have not reconciled with being open and talking about the issues you're dealing with in the like. Now that's changing. And I think the values of what it means to be a man is having that stigma broken down and being able to be vulnerable but strong. That's certainly the ethos I see younger generations taking, and they're proven to be extremely resilient and are able to deal with issues in a way in which it doesn't build up as kind of emotional scar tissue over time. I mean, the thing that I see as being a tragedy in a lot of circumstances is you have people who've built up so much barriers that they're not even able to open up to family, to their children, to brothers and sisters, friends, etc., because it's just built up. And to break that down takes a lot of time and energy. And the key thing is, it's just like part of your mental health hygiene. If you're able to break down that plaque and prevent it from becoming that scarring, you're able to have people, young men, potentially older men, who are more well-adjusted and are able to deal with trauma and tragedy and disruptive experiences in their life in a more flexible, resilient way. And so I think those values are changing, but it requires thinking about things both on a cultural level, but also, in terms of how our governments are talking about mental health and stigma, how companies and brands are putting forth the ideal man, whether it involves sports or entertainment. And the more men can see positive role models associated with sharing, being vulnerable, while remaining strong and being pillars of strength, the more they'll say, hey, I'm going to follow after these people who are open and able to share about their experiences, right, and still able to be resilient and strong. I think they go hand in hand. And the other thing, too, that I think is important to consider is kind of how these biases are constructed. A lot of people aren't aware of the bias that they're engaging in their day-to-day. They won't do certain things because it's seen as being, unmanly. Having a conversation about how you're actually feeling. Participating, at a most extreme level, participating in things like talk therapy participating in activity that's positive for the mental health. If you can break down those stigmas and those biases, you'll actually have people who can be everything they want to be and more. They just so happen to layer these positive regimens and rituals as part of their mental health hygiene.
Well, I think what you're saying is spot on. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because from the early days, it was exactly, even from my grandfather, they put a Band-Aid over it and say, oh, get on with it. It's all right. It's fine. But there is no real Band-Aid for the mind, for the brain. The brain, if you really think about it, it's all circuitry. And what's so sad is that in popular culture, there is a misconception that if you're mentally ill or your mental health is not necessarily married to, neurology, right? So if people are like, oh, I'm not in a good mental state, it's not your fault. It's just wiring up there in your brain that's off. And I think that's what's so sad about the whole issue is that often there's this thing, it's seen as weakness if you're admitting that you're not happy, or it's somehow your fault, or you're not manly enough to deal with it, when actually there's just a few chemicals and hormones that are imbalanced up there. And I think that was the case, obviously, with your father as well. He had a disease and didn't even know he had a disease, and sorry, you wanted to say something.
So there was a bit of a perfect storm of events in that there was a post-mortem diagnosis of Lewy body dementia. And combined with that was a history of depression and anxiety. And so it created this confluence of interaction that was really challenging. But yeah, I mean, from a neuroscience perspective, absolutely, there's imbalance, chemical imbalance, but also, the idea of kind of slight imbalances that aren't managed over time, they can become more extreme. And I think often when we talk about mental health, people see it as, oh, this person has mental illness, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And
exactly.
And there's a spectrum, right? And so what I hope for is that people can find solutions to support themselves where it doesn't become a chronic condition.
Right.
Where they don't end up institutionalized or requiring an intervention, where they're not taking, pills, in an addictive way, or drinking alcoholically, or doing things to self-medicate their states, ultimately paving over what the underlying issues are, and that stigma plays a role in that, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a person that's been through personally, experiences of depression, anxiety, and also, one way or the other, whether it's self-medicating, whether it be through drinking, or at one point was on citalopram, which is sort of a generic, antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. It's strange. I never really sort of noticed sort of a relief. I was just kind of like, oh, I'm taking this, and it almost felt like, is this what's it called, a placebo? Like, as in, like, I never felt this kind of like euphoria, or kind of just like, oh, everything's magical now. Like, if you were to describe your experience, because from the sounds of it, as your discovery of PYM involved you actually, taking these products yourself, and you experienced relief as a result. If you were to describe to the layman what PYM has as a physiological effect, how would you describe the almost like the before and after of that experience of discovering this solution?
Well, certainly, and it's pretty straightforward. The before is being lost in my head, being nervous, having difficulty concentrating, and the after is feeling like the version of myself that I want to be. Clear-headed, going along my day in terms of doing the things I want to do, having clear interactions, not being so focused on my anxiety and, in my own head that I can't even show up for other people. So the product was formulated to be non-euphoric in nature. It doesn't make you high.
So it's non-addictive forming, really. It's not habit forming.
No, and
Right.
it's not technically. It's something that you can take daily as a supplement,
Right.
for your acute support needs. Meaning, if you're feeling stressed or anxious, you can get support by taking your product within 20 minutes. But the main thing for us was creating a product where you can just feel clear,
Right.
go about your day. And, our whole thing with PYM is feel like your best self every day. And, but there's other ways you can do that. And I really want to advocate for the fact that it's not just about taking a gummy or a pill and, just having that being the solution. It's about all the other things you do in your life. If you're eating, a pint of ice cream a day and playing 6 hours of video games,
Right.
that will probably have an impact on your general well-being.
Yeah.
Pint of ice cream every now and again, great. Burger, fish and chips, what have you, great. But if you're doing it 7 days a week, your body starts revolting.
Right. Absolutely. You were talking earlier about the, how you came across this, and I love the fact that you used your middle name PYM as an inspiration. You used your dark times, that when your father passed away, that dark period, you used that for good. You took all these things and you turned it into something positive. What lessons did you learn in your childhood that now as a father to your son, you think, especially now, look at our children, I worry about social media and the effect of social media on their mental health. Are you taking any measures to protect your son from those kind of things that could have a negative effect on his mental health as he gets older?
Oh, absolutely. We are very focused on his schedule, make sure he gets enough sleep and can nap properly. We try to limit TV. He does watch it, but we don't turn it on as a replacement for parenting.
Right.
Well, no, but it's easy to do because...
Yes, absolutely. I know. Please shut up. Just eat. Oh, I don't care what you're watching. What? It's porn? What? No, just...
Yeah. So, we want to stay vigilant of those things, making sure he's connecting with people, especially people his age. We need to be cautious during a pandemic to be, ensuring that he is staying connected, but not, in a unstructured manner. And encouraging learning, being cautious of the words we use, ensuring that he can maintain curiosity without feeling like he's being scolded or disciplined. We want to be boosters for him and empower him without, having him run unchecked. So, we're very specific, and we do guide him along kind of healthy activity. But the main thing for us is to be considered in how we use our voices and words, trying not to, because just yelling, it's confusing for kids, especially if it's not attributed to the immediate thing. So we just want to be considered in our approach in terms of availing the world to him, showing him how to learn, giving him an opportunity to feel safe and supported. He's just starting to talk now, and it's hilarious. But we read to him constantly. We read, 7 to 10 books a day. So
that's amazing. When you were a kid, talking about sort of fatherhood, because this is, of course, me as a father, I learned, I think I have a very fun anecdote of when my daughter first realized what I do and what my job is. And it was a wonderful moment because it was so innocent. And I do want to put that on you afterwards when I tell you the story of the moment when a penny dropped for you as to who your father is. But mine was really cute. I was going around and we were eating ice cream at this shop around the corner from our house. And she was about 3 now. And yeah, she'd witnessed people coming and taking photos with me all the time. So one day she's eating an ice cream and I'd just taken a couple of pictures and she goes, "Dad, why is it everywhere we go, people want to take photos with you?" And I went, "Well, honey, like how kind of you love Elmo and you watch him every day on TV. And if you saw him right now, you'd probably go, 'Ooh, I want to tell mommy. Let me take a picture. I can show mommy.'" I go, "Well, that's kind of how it is for these people. They like your dad and they want to go home and show the people that you made dad. Because, your dad's famous like Elmo." And she goes, "Wait, what? You're famous?" And I went, "Kind of." And then she went, "Awkward." Which was it was such a beautiful, innocent moment. And then, of course, after that, she doesn't care. Dad's just a goofball dad, right? So Can you remember the time when the penny dropped for you?
Yeah, very specifically. It related to comic relief. Sorry. I remember the time the penny dropped for me. And I was about 3 years old. And it related to comic relief.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Which, for the younger audience, is I guess they still have comic relief, but
yeah, we do. But your dad, it was you, Dad, Whoopi Goldberg, and
Billy Crystal.
Crystal.
Yeah, and so I would see him on stage performing for, like 1,000 people and cameras everywhere, and that was mind blowing. Because at the time, when I was young, he wasn't really doing, my dad wasn't really doing kind of kids oriented stuff.
Right.
I wasn't watching, there was Popeye, but there was also, The World According to Garp and Good Morning Vietnam and just stuff that you don't really see when you're 3 years old.
Right.
So yeah, primarily related to his comedy. I would see that, and I would see people lining up to pay to see him perform. I didn't know they were paying, but they were lining up to see him perform. Mm. And so that was kind of the aha moment for me.
Actually, to that end, one of the things that stands out to me to this day is, again, Jay and I are huge fans of stand-up comedy. The end of his set of on Broadway, where he does that little monologue where he invokes your name and says, what should we do, Zach? And he goes, "I don't know, let's just fucking have some fun." And he does that thing where he as if you're holding his hand, again, it was one of those beautiful, touching moments where his humanity in his comedy was paramount, and we all felt like we grew up alongside him. I was going to ask also as well, you kind of touched on it very briefly about this, obviously the year that we've been in since PYM's launch, especially going through the pandemic and lockdown and everything we've gone through this year. Have you seen a sharp rise in people requesting your product, or how has this year affected you?
Yeah, it's been great. There's a lot of fucking miserable people buying our products.
So we have seen, we've only just launched, we've seen enormous demand for what we're doing. I think what we need to get out more in terms of a message is that there are certain people who are finding our product to be part of their everyday life.
Right.
And what we don't want to be is the only thing that they take to support themselves. And, amongst a certain subset of people, we're not going to be the solution.
Sure.
But we've found, at least from people sharing with us their stories, that we play a role in many people's lives as kind of this daily ritual of support. And that's awesome. But what we want to continue to do is push them towards other healthy activity,
Right.
supporting activity. And that's something that I want to make more of an effort around, because there's you have a brand, you have a company. Technically, your goal is to sell people as much of the product as possible, to create this flywheel. And from our perspective, we want to create a ritual, but what's even more important is our customers prioritizing their mental health. And so if we play a role in it, that's awesome. If ultimately it catalyzes other activity that leads them to feeling better supported, that's great. If it pushes them along a path where they suddenly, start thinking about talking to a therapist or a psychiatrist, or thinking they might need prescription medication for something a little bit more heavy duty, which we don't see ourselves as. We're not a heavy duty solution. Then we feel we will have succeeded. We want to have people find the right solutions for themselves. And I think people are really exploring where they need to be to support their mental health during the day now. And so that's what the pandemic has certainly set off.
Zach, what do you think? I'm always obsessed with this notion of the pursuit of happiness. And the reason why is because you will meet somebody. I told Adam this story the other day. I met an Uber driver who I was talking to in LA, and he dropped me off to this huge mansion where I was having this meeting with this big producer. And he was driving a Toyota Camry, and I was 5 minutes down the road, and I don't give a shit. I don't need a big SUV. I'll take an Uber X, mate. And we had this lovely conversation, and he said to me, he goes, a lot of the time, these rich people, they're not very happy. I went, is that right? Is that your experience? And he goes, yeah, they're always moaning about something, not enough hours in the day to do this, or I've got to pay this massive tax bill, or the pool's costing me this much to maintain, and all sorts of stuff. And I've always been obsessed with this notion of happiness and how to attain it. So in your experience, and you've experienced so much in your lifetime, what would you say are the few things that make you truly happy? And how do you protect that happiness? How do you guard that to maintain it in that state?
So the two things that make me genuinely happy are real connection. And that's not just good Wi-Fi. It involves actually someone. Good Wi-Fi is great, but really connecting with someone, to really understand where they're coming from, have a genuine, authentic interaction. And I am very fortunate. I have a great relationship with my family and my son and my wife. And a large part of that is that there's work that goes into it, but it leaves me feeling connected and happy. And the second thing is purpose. And purpose for me is very service oriented. I find service is a key to my happiness. Again, that doesn't relate to mobile service or the like.
But it helps.
All roads lead to Wi-Fi.
Right.
It's about finding purpose and having that purpose layered into your day-to-day life. And so I think the challenge with people who may have set their personal purpose for attaining money, wealth, same thing for fame, wealth, fame, power, is that suddenly you achieve a mode of it, and then you realize there's just never enough. There's never enough fame. There's never enough money. There's never enough power. And if you actually tie it to purpose, what is it that you're actually doing with that money? How are you using your fame for good or service? How are you using whatever power you wield to support the greater good? That's happiness.
I love that. I absolutely love that. We had a talk with a friend of ours called Jay Shetty. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he's in the health and wellness world, and he actually had this exact same thing, which they talk about, is that really do start to find a happy place when you realize, A, what you're naturally good at, And B, how can you use that then in the service of others? When those two come together, that's like a magic formula. And it seems like, to me, Zak, you found that.
I mean, I'm on my path. I certainly find fulfillment.
Right.
And, but it's a journey, you know, there's not an end point.
Right.
It's not like I will have done this amount of service. I've done this much community service. I have volunteered for X amount of hours. Therefore, I am complete.
Right.
And so, you know, I think it really relates to, and this goes to the thing that I'm very interested in, is innovating, bringing stuff that are new to the world. Ideally, it's tied to world positive activity, but how can you tie it to continually pushing the envelope, challenging yourself to be the version of yourself that you want to be, trying to do good and innovative, impactful ways, just trying to continue your personal story in a meaningful way.
To that end, what does PYM have next in terms of products or positioning or new channels? What are you looking? I know obviously you're very recently created, but what are you looking for? What's coming?
Well, so there's a bunch of things coming, and I'm really excited. So the first couple things is we're very first thing we're doing is we're launching a new flavor.
Okay.
So we've got a citrus flavor now. We're launching a berry flavor.
Okay. Show us the packet, mate. We want to see it.
There you go.
There you go. All right. So it's only currently available in citrus, right?
Yeah. And
Gotcha.
And then next is berry with a fast follow of an extra strength product that we're formulating.
Okay.
And that will be available in citrus and berry.
Awesome.
But, you know, beyond that, really what we're looking to do is create a supportive app experience. And the key thing there is for it to be a companion that will push you into connecting with, push you into activity that will connect you with others. Not a social network, but a community experience. And also coinciding with that, we are keen on creating something that's super fun. So we're in the early stages of developing that experience. I think we hit upon something that can be very new and that can be really fun and new to the world, but it's going to take a little bit of time to develop.
Thank you so much for your time, bro. I really appreciate this. There is just one thing before I leave you that I want to ask, and it would be wrong of me not to be able to try to get this from you, because it's not every day I'm going to get to have a conversation like this with you. One thing that you said in the documentary that I watched a while ago, actually, this is before I knew I was going to talk to you, and you said that your dad sometimes felt like he wasn't doing enough. And that he wasn't, and you said to you, he was the most successful person you knew. And I always wondered, because that is an artist thing. I'm an artist, and I often get in this slump where I'm like, oh, there's so much more I should be doing, and I should be doing this. And so when you witnessed that, how did you handle that as this? Here's your role model who you look at as having everything, and him admitting to you that he feels like he hasn't done as much. Do you feel like there was this element of he was one person when he was on stage, and then when he got home, he wasn't able to be that person, but he was still dad to you? So I'm interested in that whole dynamic of dad, the performer, and the man, Robin Williams, and what you learned from that.
I think the thing that I found he sought to learn was how to be happy in that downtime. And for him, it was very much related to service. He loved supporting good causes, charitable organizations and the like. And he learned how to connect with his family, me, you know, and my siblings, and the thing that I found for him that was ultimately relieving was continuing to learn and to take the time to really understand others. And it was part of his genius, connecting potentially disparate topics and turning it into something new. But for him, it was very clear that he was a student to life. And I always appreciated that about him.
That's beautiful. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
I love that. And there was that one thing that he said, which really stuck with me. And he said, we're only given a little small spark, all of us, a small spark of madness. And if you lose that, you're in trouble because that's all we got. And, you know, and that can bring meaning to life. And I really, that resonated with me a lot. So thank you again for your time, Zak. We really appreciate it, mate. And it's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you. And
such a pleasure. Thank you.
And also, where can our listeners find PYM products?
You can find it on our website, youcanpym.com, and we are working on getting product to the UK.
Awesome. Well, I live in New York, so it's all right.
And LA here.
And he lives in LA.
Good. Well, it's now currently available in the US and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And we are seeking to expand internationally in 2021.
So you can www.youcanpym.com.
Correct. Youcanpym.com.
There we go.
Love that, mate. Well, thank you, Zak, man. You have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. You too.
And stay safe and healthy. And yeah, let's stay in touch, brother. Next time I'm in LA, I'd love to meet up and have a coffee or something.
That sounds awesome. Thank you so much. And
of course.
And wishing you a wonderful day.
Thank you, brother. Take care, man.
Take care.
Bye.
See you, bud. Bye.